We're absolutely honored to have you all here today. We have the agenda as you all requested ready to go. And so that you know, our ceiling mics are on. So you don't have to yell, but whispering is also not appreciated because we are live streaming this as of now and such to ensure anybody who would like to listen or participate has an opportunity here for your session. So with that being said, Madam President, over to you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order officially and note that 4 of the 5 Ada County Highway District Commissioners are here. Commissioner Baker was unable to join us today, so if you'd like to open your meeting.
Okay, I'll open our meeting, and we have 4 of our 6 city council members here. Thank you for hosting this.
You're welcome. We're very happy to have you here. So let's get right into the agenda. The first item is growth in South Meridian and North Kuna, and we'll have a presentation by ACHD staff.
Gary Inselman, Development Services Manager. Is this on?
It's kind of hard to hear you, so.
Sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
This is an update to a briefing that I gave our commission actually last Valentine's Day 2018. So I've got some updates within it and the growth in North Kuna, South Meridian we've seen over the past 5-6 years. With these numbers from 2014 to 2017, we had over 3,400 lots preliminary platted in Kuna, north of Deer Flat, west of Highway 69. In Meridian, another 957, so over almost 4,400 lots in that 4-year span. Those numbers do not include older developments that have not built out yet, and then, as you'll see, we've had several developments approved in 2018 adding to those numbers. This is a map of those preliminary plats from 2014 to 17. You can see the city limits shaded in for the 2 communities. A few other numbers to consider. Countywide in 2017, over 3,100 lots were final platted. However, over 4,300 permits were pulled. In 2016, it was the same situation, more permits than lots, so our vacant lot inventory is shrinking. In fact, it was a 14% reduction in 18 compared to 2017. So as busy as we are, and believe me, we look at every subdivision in the county, we're continuing to not keep up with a lot of inventory compared to the number of permits that are being pulled. In Kuna alone, they've been over 300 single-family permits per year. At that level, they could build out that North Kuna area in 8 to 9 years. The cumulative impacts of that with the entitlements that we showed on the previous slide, it's projected to be over 40,000 vehicle trips per day. And from the traffic impact studies reviewed, that would project to put 13 intersections and 6 road segments over our planning thresholds. And then these additional developments, at this time last year, they were coming. The highlighted ones have actually been approved since then. And they would add an additional 9,000 vehicle trips per day at build out. So these are the intersections and road segments. Lake Hazel is the road on the on the south and highlighted with a couple of road segments projected to exceed our planning thresholds is 10-mile road. Then down south, Columbia Road, a couple miles that are projected to exceed our planning thresholds, and another segment of 10-mile. So our program projects in this area are fairly limited at this point. We'll build the Linder Road Deer Flat intersection in 2020, and 10-mile road, Amity Road intersection is currently under design and is programmed for construction in 2022. In this past year, our commission did make South 10-mile road a priority corridor for us, and in the most recent adopted integrated 5-year work plan, we added these 3 intersections for design in 2023. However, that still leaves 8 intersections and 4 road segments that are projected to exceed our planning thresholds that are not programmed for construction in our current work plan. Just to give you an idea of some of the numbers currently, current PM peak hour count on 10-mile between Overland and Victory, up close to 950 vehicles per hour. Last year, that number exceeded 1,000 vehicles per hour, and our planning threshold is 690. So you can see that this one is way over thresholds today, and this project did get moved up in our work plan. It's under design right now and is programmed for construction in 2021. The next segment, currently still under our planning thresholds, and the remainder of the corridor south is still under our planning threshold. So we have time to adapt somewhat and try to make some improvements before build out of all of these developments. So as we will all expect, Kuna and Meridian will continue to experience large growth over the next 10 to 20 years. From the traffic studies, State Highway 69 is nearing capacity in the peak hours now, so it will not be able to absorb all of that growth. And 10-mile road is the access to the I-84 interchange, so that's why it was added as a priority corridor. And through our impact fee program, the development is paying for system improvements to these arterial intersections and road segments. However, we can't keep up with the intense growth over the entire county, so we need to focus our improvements, and unfortunately, historically, we lag behind these growth areas. In the southwest Boise area, for example, in 2007, we constructed 6 interim signals, and it really helped to buy us some time before we could get down there with projects which are currently being designed and programmed. And this area is a preview of challenges we're going to see elsewhere. As Meridian Council knows, you have a growth area as well on the east side of Highway 69, as well as North Meridian and Eagle and Star. So in the southeast Meridian area, developing your regional park. We've had preliminary conversations with Brighton around that Lake Hazel, Locust Grove intersection, another big development area coming, as well as current developments underway on both sides of Lake Hazel Road near Eagle Road. So down in areas like this in particular, we have not built our base network yet. We're still running on the old section line roads, 24 feet of pavement. In some cases, we're lucky if it's that wide. And to add additional roadway and intersection projects, we're going to either require a new revenue source or a review and shift of our current priorities. What we could look at is some short, medium, long-term strategies in these high-growth areas. Look at some focused improvements that could keep traffic moving a little better until we can come back with the full future widening projects. part of that, two first bullets are highlighted because we've completed those. We recommended last year of adding South 10 Mile Road as priority corridor. We did that. Recommended advancing that road segment and the 10 Mile Victory intersection. We did that. It's currently under design. Other things we could do is look at more interim signals and again some focused improvements. And if we're going to focus on, for example, in this area, 10 Mile Road, there would have to be an acknowledgement that other corridors may exceed our thresholds in the short and medium term, such as Linder Road, Columbia Road, Amity Road. This is a map of our priority corridors in that area. Again, this is from last year, so the circle was the recommendation to add 10 Mile Road. Other roads south of the freeway, we've got Eagle Road, Maple Grove, Lake Hazel, and Orchard. If we are to consider interim signals when warranted, particularly along 10 Mile Road, we have some significant constraints there with some of the irrigation facilities and right-of-way constraints which don't make them feasible to be built as development occurs. There's not enough room. So many of these would need to be ACHD projects. That cost would be close to $350,000 in that range each if we were to contract those out. So with that, with further direction by our commission, we could look at developing a regional strategy for this area in coordination with Kuna and the city of Meridian. So thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Are there questions?
Madam Chair, I guess this kind of reminds me of the early 2000s, mid-2000s, when we started to see a number of large plan unit developments, at the time that's what they were called, coming on the horizon, and quite similar to this. It worked well in having the city, Ada County Highway District, and the development community and landowners coming to the table and talking about the pressures for road improvement needs and what we could be doing in partnership, public-private partnerships. Certainly, Meridian has had a number of public-private partnerships that really started with El Dorado and Silverstone, and then up to Center Point, and then in the North Meridian area where the development community did many of the road improvements first and were paid back through impact fees. And that was a big collaboration, but it brought a lot of needed relief. I appreciate the presentation from Gary and seeing the amount of growth in the north part of Kuna, and because we'll get the impacts. And so that coordination between the cities, ACHD, and the development community will be essential in having that conversation to see how we can maybe coordinate that and see what might voluntarily be done in a proactive manner, but a regional concept and approach is going to be necessary, because those are all rural roads.
Okay, anyone else?
Madam President?
Yes.
Madam President, Madam Mayor, I thank you so much for inviting us to your home this afternoon. It's nice of you. I personally enjoy these meetings. I think that's what citizens expect, to have stakeholders communicate and talk. But I don't mean to speak on behalf of our body, but I think that it would be really important and very much welcome to have, to develop a regional strategy for that area. I echo the comments of Madam Mayor and what she said. very important, because that's where all the growth is, that's where all the land is, and so, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going, a lot of development, a lot of planning going on in that area of our city and this area, so developing some type of regional strategy is important, and also communicating, continuing to communicate about that would be essential.
Anybody else? Yeah, I would agree. We do need to look at directing staff to develop a regional strategy and involve the city in those conversations as we move forward with it, so.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, go
I
ahead.
guess I just make sure too that it's not just the cities, we should also be involved in the county as well as the city of Kuna. And quite frankly, I think the city of Boise needs to be involved in that conversation as well. Otherwise, it's gonna be 10 years from now, we're gonna be talking about the growth in South Boise that's feeding over to Kuna, which is feeding into Meridian. If we're really wanting to look at this as a partnership and a collaboration, we really need to make sure that we're involving as many municipalities that are going to be contributing to the growth in the southern part of the valley as possible.
Did you have something else, Madam Mayor?
Well, I see some faces in the room that were involved in the North Meridian plan that probably could bring some historical context to the table as we get the various groups together, which would be helpful just to kind of spotlight what we did in North Meridian, and if there's something similar that could be done in that area. And certainly if we could lend support or even lead bringing everyone together, we certainly are willing to set that up.
Great. Okay. Anything from the commission?
Yes, we've heard from council. How about the commission?
Well, I just have I've been looking at some data on the Housing Transportation Index, and I know the new census will be coming around in next year, and we'll have some new data. They do it on city level, but they do it on a census block level, and it's basically that the Housing Transportation Index basically says what's sustainable for a family budget. That housing costs and transportation costs shouldn't exceed 45%, and all over Ada County it is at 50%, and it's a little higher in Meridian, mostly because of the rate at which transportation costs have gone up, and whether there's a real opportunity to work on strategies because when the rubber hits the road, it's the family's budget to make it affordable to live and work in our communities. Whether there's a way in which we can partner across the county, across the region, to help not just keep housing prices affordable, but transportation costs so that they don't eat up if we do a whole lot of effort to help make it affordable to live, but then we do nothing to address the housing costs, the transportation costs. So whether that's a real opportunity to work together, and using that data I think helps to drive that, since we're going to get a new wave of the HT index.
Commissioner Goldthorpe, do you have something?
One thing that we really haven't discussed very much because it's so preliminary is some of Kuna's efforts, which as we speak right now, there's a Chamber of Commerce meeting going on in Kuna where the Economic Development Department of the city is outlining some of the progress that's been made the last few months in developing a light industrial park at the end of Eagle Road, just past the railroad tracks, and with the idea of developing about 6,000 jobs there, so that a number of people currently driving north every day and then south in the evening won't have to do that. And if you've seen Kuna's latest economic development video that the Department of Commerce is sharing, successfully, by the way, you'll know they're serious about it. And so that will probably be in a better stage of development this year, and when it is, I'll try and talk Lisa into coming to the Meridian City Council to keep you up to speed on that.
All right. Anything else on this topic? Okay, sounds like we're gonna need to move forward and try to develop a regional strategy, so we'll be talking with our staff about trying to get that moving along. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Linder Road Overpass, and we have a presentation by the City of Meridian.
Well, our presentation is just a conversation. Certainly, last fall, we had a presentation by Compass. And at that time, we had asked our representative, Tony Tisdale, who was in front of us, if she could put some information together as far as if Linder Overpass were to be built, what kind of benefits to the transportation network would be realized. And so we followed up with a written letter of request by the mayor and city council to see if they could put some numbers together. There have been a couple of meetings from our staffs that have got together and brought some results back. I believe you have those numbers. Yes, no. Justin, did you share those?
No.
Okay. Okay, it was sent out to the staff members that were involved in it. And if you would like, I can have Kayla give a brief overview. But it did look, as our staffs worked together, the cost, if Cloverdale was $10 million to reconstruct, it would be around 12 to 15 million for the Linder Overpass, and ITD I think put it at 20 million. If it's at 20 million, it does, through the criteria, land in the top 20 projects. If it's at the 12 to 15 million, that would land it in the top 10. And so there would be a benefit to the transportation network. The city council has talked. We haven't talked any numbers, but to reckon back to the Locust Grove Overpass and the partnership between Ada County Highway District, the City of Meridian, and the Idaho Transportation Department to get that overpass, I think was critical in seeing that improvement was made. And it made a huge impact. And if you remember at the time, the City of Meridian only had Meridian Interchange and Eagle Interchange, both of which we share with other communities. And we had no other overpass that connected our north and south sides. So when that improvement was made, it made a huge difference to the public in terms of trying to get to and from places. So we thought we would ask to have the conversation on the Linder Overpass and get a feel for the Ada County Highway District Commission to see if you were interested in that and what kind of partnership we could then discuss how that could look and then bring the request to ITD.
Well, I was around when the Locust Grove conversation took place, and had that partnership not been proposed by the City of Meridian, I'm not sure it would have been built by now even. So that worked very, very well, and personally, we haven't talked about this as a commission, but I'm in favor of exploring the same kind of partnership for the Linder Road Overpass to try to get it done sooner than later. Comments from commission, council?
Madam President,
Yes.
that has had and will have my support going forward. I think it's important for a lot of reasons. And really, unless ITD has some kind of a curveball to throw at us, cost and budgeting and scheduling are going to be our only big obstacles.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
you are all our road experts, so I mean, I'm hearing at least some nodding of heads. This is something we want to work on together. How do we get to work then together? What are our next steps? What are the things that you would want to see from the city? What are the things the highway district would start doing so that we can begin this process? And I think it's important we begin it hand in hand. And I think that if we've got some time on our agenda today to talk about this, I'd love to hear more from the highway district as to what they would be looking for from the city so that we can meet your expectations as partners.
Well, I can't speak for my fellow commissioners of the agency, but I think the public deserves, whenever we consider major public investment in a piece of public infrastructure, that we leverage that with other investments, land use investments that the city might be investing in. And I think public investment in transit and other investments so that it's not just a one-off. We're going to do this for one mode. We're going to integrate our public investments. Just because we're separate agencies doesn't mean we can't work together to say we're going to leverage this investment with an investment that might be prioritized, that the city might do, that ITD might do, that another agency might do, so that we maximize the use of our public dollar and we reap benefits for the public, a return on that investment.
Madam President?
Let's go ahead.
So a year ago when we had this meeting, I brought up the idea of doing this thing, and there were a lot of red faces and heartburn and anger levied against me over several months, and all of a sudden, here we are again, and now it's a wonderful idea. So I am so pumped that this is happening, but we need to, as much fun as it is to just talk about it for the next year, 2 years, whatever, let's figure out how to make the thing happen. One of the ideas that I had brought up was so before I get to that, we're all very aware that nobody calls us saying, oh, your parks are crap, or, oh, well, maybe in Boise you have geese. We don't have the geese problem. We work on that. But anyway, the big thing we hear about is schools and roads. Schools and roads. City, why don't you take care of the schools and roads? Why don't you build more schools and roads? Because that's not what we do. But we have the development community that is spending a fortune on permit fees and all these different things in our community development department, where last year we had around $3 million of excess revenue that we put into other fluffy political legacy building projects instead of putting it where the people are actually having demands of us. And while they may not understand that we don't really have a role in roads, we have this opportunity where we have this extra money. I don't know how much our projection is for this year. I sent Todd an email, honestly, it was like 20 minutes ago, to see what our current projection is because it changes daily. But my preference would be to take every penny of that and partner with you guys to make that happen with the Linder Road overpass. I don't want it to necessarily be a every year we're putting money into road kind of situation, because I don't want some future ACHD board to be relying on we're going to have money from the city every year for their projects, whatnot. So, because I don't know if I can trust a future board. I don't trust a future council. I don't know if I always trust a future Ty Palmer. But I think that it's very important and appropriate for us to partner on major road projects such as Locust Grove and Linder and maybe other future ones going forward. But I think that council needs to just bite the bullet, and instead of putting this into something that's going to make us look better, let's just get this thing done and figure out if whatever that dollar figure is enough for you guys to be able to make it happen, and then figure out whatever ITD needs to make them happy as well.
Anyone else have comments?
I would be supportive of that. I think moving forward and exploring the project and talking with ITD and seeing what can be done. You know, speaking back to the Locust Grove, anytime we can bring everybody to the table, work collaboratively, and the public-private partnerships, we've seen that work. So I think it really warrants looking into and setting up the process. It'd be good for everyone.
Madam President?
Yes.
I guess in response to Commissioner Hansen's comment, we have done a lot of integrated planning in that area with the 10-mile interchange, and that was an integrated land use and transportation map. Staff has been working on public transportation route also in that area that we'll be bringing forward to City Council that will tie to Nampa's system and to Boise's system and benefit that area as well. So we're trying to be a partner to the transportation infrastructure needs and solutions, and not being a transportation agency. But we do want to be part of the solution, and we just wanted this part of the conversation to be, we want to be a partner, we want to be part of that conversation, and let's kind of drill down, figure out what that needs to be, and let's see what we can do in moving it forward, working with Idaho Transportation Department as well.
Madam President?
Yes.
Madam President, Madam Mayor, living so close to Locust Grove, I would just like to express my appreciation for it and the unintended, very positive consequences that I see when school is in session. It is absolutely amazing to me how many students walk or bike to Renaissance High School, and now I'm seeing an uptake. I also believe that maybe that is ICOM as well. And so that is a very, very busy overpass for vehicles, but also for bike and foot traffic. And I'm counting that all those backpacks I see are students headed to one of the schools over there. And so thank you very much, and greatly appreciate the collaboration that made all of that possible. And I admit I benefit from that overpass pretty much on a daily basis.
Anything else on that topic?
Madam President?
Yes.
Madam Mayor? I'm looking at a bunch of nodding heads, so I appreciate your support in this conversation. It means a lot to us. One thing that we haven't discussed, Linder Road is one of the very few corridors that go from South Meridian all the way to our neighbors to the north in Eagle. And so that could potentially be a really important corridor, not just for our city, but just for the Treasure Valley as a whole. So just to make that point. I was one of those people, I think it was probably a couple of days after Locust Grove was built, that overpass. I think it was probably about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I went over it 5 times in a row. I was so happy. I drove back, I'm like, this is great, this is the most fantastic. It's such a big deal when you make that connectivity, so.
Madam President, I think I was doing that with 10-mile interchange, frankly. But we can make sure that you get the numbers that were developed with the group and Compass, and so you can see the benefits to the network. And certainly we would look for your direction on the what's next. As Councilman Kavanagh mentioned, we don't know this realm, but just know that we'll be here at 4 o'clock to discuss it if that's when you want to meet.
All right, so I think the next steps, and I'm sure my commissioner will correct me if I get this wrong. I think the next steps are to get those numbers from the city of Meridian and Compass, to have your council talk about potentially what a contribution could be from the city of Meridian, and then we need to set something up with ITD to get the conversation started and try to identify other funding sources.
Madam President. Madam President,
Yes.
thinking back on what I was saying, just wanted to clarify that I believe that the ACHD is doing a fantastic job, and I believe that we are not. I'm far from any kind of an expert, other than, well, when I was a kid, Locust Grove Overpass sounded exciting, so when it happened while I was on my mission, people knew I was so excited about it eventually happening. I had 3 different family members all send me pictures of the thing, and yeah, I was super pumped about it. And years ago, I was extremely critical of ACHD, but I feel like, especially under Director Wong's leadership, that ACHD is doing a fine job of working with the funds that are available to you. So my comments before were in no way meant to be critical of ACHD, but you guys have a job that I don't want, but I want to help you figure out how we can help make some of our mutual priorities come to fruition.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Madam Chairman, Madam Mayor. When it comes to, I think some feedback would be beneficial for the council is, as I recall, with the Locust Grove overpass, the city offered a finite dollar amount to cover some costs. From a commissioner standpoint, are you looking for the city to come back with a dollar amount, or for us to offer a percentage of cost? What is it that, it's almost like I'm asking you what you want for Christmas. And I want to know, because I think it's important for the council to have a good understanding. So this is what ACHD is looking for, so that we can make that decision as a council is, hey, we think the Linder Overpass is important. Are we able to meet the expectation of the highway district in terms of what they're looking for from us? So whether that is a dollar amount, a percentage of, certain costs that the city's going to be covered, can you help us at least understand what you would be looking for?
Madam President?
Go ahead.
I guess just to help frame what we did before, we put 1.8 million as the amount. It was to purchase right away. And I think just over $1 million was spent.
So I guess to answer your question, what we would be looking for is whatever you're willing to give us for Christmas, because that will be something that'll go into the mix when we have the conversation with ITD. So, yes, Director Wong.
I'll take all your checks now.
I will be small.
It's in the mail.
We know what you live. If I could, I think understanding what the commission and council's perspective appears to be, I think the next logical step before you would have that very specific discussion is for our staff to meet with the ITD staff, because at the end of the day, this will be their project. When it's all said and done, you're on the interstate. And I think it would be very beneficial where our staff could bring back additional information as to where ITD sees this, what ITD believes is capable of, and we can probably help a little bit with that discussion to get it in the right perspective. I truly believe that that next step for the commission and your council and the mayor, of course, is let us have that conversation, and we can come back and say, here are the major pillars, if that's acceptable as well.
So how soon can you make that happen?
Big question.
He's already sent a text.
Madam President,
Yes.
one more clarification on my comments. I think I'd used the term excess revenue, which in government, sadly, there's no such thing. What I meant to say was unanticipated revenue. So that fund is a direct result of the growth. And so that's why, well, I think Councilman Kavanaugh's question is super important to know what it would be worth to you, or what you would need to make that happen. That is certainly an important question, but for me, the reason I had said anyway, every penny, is because while I would love for you to take some money from other projects, especially in other cities, to be able to work with us to make this happen, I think that leaving us anything extra to put into things that don't pertain to the direct problem that's caused by the growth that we've approved wouldn't be appropriate on our end. And so if you've got a dollar figure that is less than whatever our unanticipated revenue is, then I would, and I'm very likely maybe the only one on council with this opinion, I'd like to take the rest of that and find the next project. Again, it would have to be a significant project, not just something that you've got planned that maybe we can move up, but something that may be far out but is still important to our community to start working on funding that one. So, yeah, unanticipated, not excess.
Anything else on this topic?
Madam President,
Yes.
I guess that our staffs get together and talk about this transportation network improvements that it would make and help frame the message to Idaho Transportation Department on the value of that project. If we could maybe first get together on a strategy and set up the meeting and have the conversation. I think you know what I'm saying.
All right, anything else on that topic?
Madam President,
Yes.
just our thanks for the opportunity to have this collaboration, to hear comments from the commissioners and from Director Wong. For me, when you come into one of these meetings, you wonder what the outcome is going to be, and I really appreciate that there is this sense of, no, this is an issue that we need to work on, and excited of being able to work on this together. I think is a benefit for all of our citizens, so thank you.
All right, let's move on to the next topic, which is impacts from Project Bronco on the transportation system. And that's a presentation by ACHD staff. Mr. Inselman again.
Commissioners and City Council, Madam Mayor, I will admit right up front, we did not have a lot of involvement in this. It's obviously a City of Nampa project in Canyon County, but I'll tell you what we know. So, like I said, it is development within the City of Nampa. You probably read the news stories this week. Some stats from those news stories. 3,000 employees at, when they get fully operational, up to 7,000 vehicle trips per day. Those jive with the traffic study that we viewed, more than 350 truck trips per day, and opening October 2020. The size of the building varies greatly from what we were told, but it's the number of trips that matters, and those are jiving with what we've seen. Location at Franklin and Robinson. They did require a traffic impact study. We did see it and provided some general guidance, but as you can see in one instance, we got it the day before the meeting. They wanted us to provide comments. It's a very large traffic study. I don't know if you've ever seen some of these studies, but so we did what we could to help provide some guidance. ITD reviewed it as well. As of yesterday, they had not approved the traffic study. They did send a letter in November continuing to express some concerns related to the impacts to the interstate, the existing interchanges. The bullet says they'd offered a couple of options and neither have been accepted to date. And their email stated that they're in the position of, it's an off-system development. They have no jurisdiction to make any requirements, so they're made their requests, and that's kind of where they're at. And it's the same with us. We have no jurisdiction to require them to provide any revisions to the traffic study it further, or provide any street improvements to mitigate the impacts.
Madam President, I don't mean to interrupt. So just to
Absolutely.
confirm, are you saying that they said no, ITD said no to that study, or they just haven't approved it yet?
They have not approved it yet. They wanted to see some additional study of some areas of concern. In Ada County, there's multiple intersections and road segments that it would impact. For the most part, it will use up available capacity on the system. At Chinden and Star, their project list said constructed by others. I don't know who the others are. When we met with the City of Nampa engineers, they didn't say who the others would be. Their study looked at needs in 2020, 2025, and 2030. So it showed that they would, their impacts would create a need for improvements at McMillan and Star in 2030. Showed that there was a need at Eustic and Star in 2020, and again, it said constructed by others. We did request that the city include this intersection as a required mitigation. We've not seen the final approved list of projects. Black Cat and Franklin, 10 Mile and Franklin, obviously we've built those out, so while they're impacting the intersections, it wasn't rising to the need to provide any additional mitigation. The same at the 10 Mile interchange. The existing segments of Franklin Road that are still at 2 lanes, obviously they will impact those as the traffic travels to 10 Mile Road and the interchange, and did show a needed improvement by 2030, but no project was proposed in Ada County. As you've read, they did have I believe Nampa approved the MOU and are looking at up to $14.5 million worth of improvements. A good chunk of that is going to be along their frontage, along Franklin and Robinson Roads, which they would have to improve anyway. And then other local intersections around there in Canyon County, along with some in lieu payments rather than construction projects. And that's all we know.
Okay, questions or comments for staff?
Madam President, Madam Mayor, I've read, I don't remember where I read it, or I listened to it, or what, I don't remember, but I had heard that the applicant was going to provide significant infrastructure improvements. Are any of these projects that you showed us, are any of these projects going to be done by the applicant? Do you know that? Any changes, or any lights, or? Have they mentioned anything? Has anyone got that specific, I guess, in the process?
I have a draft list that was provided to us. Like I said, we haven't received the final list. They were going to do their frontage improvements. I believe they are going to do the intersection at Star and Franklin Road, some widening of Franklin Road in that vicinity, and either construct or contribute to the airport and Robinson Road intersection. There was discussion of a potential STARS agreement with ITD to build a portion of a new interchange in the Highway 16 alignment, as well as the intersection at Highway 16 and Franklin Road, and that it would have only been an off-ramp from westbound I-84 to Franklin is what we were told, but those discussions didn't lead to an agreement.
All right, anything further on this topic?
Madam President, this is going to have a huge impact in that area, in an area that wasn't on an area of priority for our growth. And I'm certain, probably not in your road improvement 5-year plan, I'm sure. And it's going to have significant impact when you put 3,000 employees out there. And we had council approve an apartment development that said we need to start planning for housing for the workforce, which indicates probably new pressures for additional housing and support services. That's going to put a lot of pressure in that area. So we haven't been part of discussions, and so would it serve ACHD? It certainly would serve our interest to maybe meet with Nampa and the highway district. I assume one of those intersections was with the Canyon Highway District, one of the other districts in that area, but to have the conversation on impact and have some coordination on what is going to be needed in that area. We would like to be part of that conversation if you're able to have that with Nampa.
Madam President,
Yes.
according to what I was reading this morning, the Amazon hasn't even closed on that property yet. It belongs to that developer who's doing everything in anticipation of. So I read into that the final decision hasn't even been made.
Just follow up.
Sure.
And I guess in light of that, we would want to be part of the conversation before the final decision has been made. So we're not reacting, that we can be part of the conversation on what impacts are going to be had in that area.
Anyone else have a comment on this?
Madam President, Madam Mayor. I know one of the priorities of the highway district is economic development, and so it's, on one hand, it's exciting for economic development. I just hate the fact that it's built on county taxpayers, that aren't really gonna see much of that economic development benefit. So I agree with the mayor, any opportunity that we can have to better collaborate with the city of Nampa, well, even more the city of Nampa than the highway district, but their highway district, seems to be a sooner rather than later conversation that needs to occur.
So is the plan for the city of Meridian to schedule something with the city of Nampa to talk about that?
We certainly can. It is transportation driven, and certainly I'm curious as to what this would do with the Highway 16 corridor and any maybe accelerating some pieces of Highway 16, and then what engagement or involvement the state's going to have in it too. So I'm not sure if we're the appropriate entity to call the meeting. Maybe it's Compass. I don't know, but I think that it will have implications perhaps on escalating the Highway 16 corridor, at least having that discussion. I'm interested to know where that interchange and off-ramp is going to go, and does that have long-term, is that just a short-term fix? Is it going to help us long-term in that corridor? And our county roads connect to their county roads, and it would be really imperative that they actually line up, because they had a different vision for that interchange, which was going to be north of Franklin, and I don't know if that has changed yet either. So just trying to make sure that we're aware of impacts that are going to be had on Ada County side, realizing that there's going to be no tax benefits to help offset the cost to ACHD system, but we should know what the impacts are going to be. Maybe. I don't do roads.
Well, and our dilemma is we don't really have any control over what's going on with Highway 16. We do coordinate with the Canyon County Highway Districts where our roads match up.
we do some planning coordination with them to make sure the alignments do actually match. And those are conversations that have been ongoing.
We can set the meeting up. Okay.
All right, anything else on that topic?
Madam President, Madam Mayor, I echo the mayor's sentiments and also Councilmember Luke, Cabinet 7. We just need to be proactive in this, not reactive. If we're reactive in this scenario, it could be little problems.
All right, if there's nothing else on that topic, the next item is open discussion.
Uh-oh, open mic night.
Yeah.
You scared.
Anybody have anything else they want to bring up?
I think we brought our weightiest issues to discuss.
Madam
at the
President,
moment.
I'd like to take a moment just to thank Mayor Tammy for all of her past public service and her involvement and her partnership and driving that partnership with ACHD. And just grateful for her and for that effort.
I agree.
And I would echo that. ACHD has had a great relationship with the city of Meridian for quite a few years, and I very much appreciate the fact that the city of Meridian is always willing to come to the table and talk about any issues that come up and try to work through those cooperatively. So, thank you, Mayor and Council, for that.
Madam President, I would certainly echo that as well. We were talking about that earlier too, so thank you. Meridian has always been a great partner for several different initiatives throughout the valley, so much appreciated.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I would say that we've had an elected body that has realized that usually the number one issue on everyone's mind has been traffic. And it really has made sure that we've had a council that has been interested in seeing how we can be a part of it. And certainly it's been an honor to serve.
I'd agree. You've been a great mayor, and it's been great working with you. And I just wish the city of Meridian had more power to decide how to spend their transportation dollars and set your priorities. So maybe we'll get there someday.
Well, I appreciate the working relationship that we've had with our staffs. It's been very positive, and certainly look forward to working with you for 10 more months and getting that Linder Overpass done.
It's your
Hey.
priority.
We haven't built in 10 months.
I think so. I think it's possible.
Might be a little optimistic.
11.
Oh, we'll take it.
All right, anything further under open discussion? If not, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and thank you all very much for being here and being a partner with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, let's get her done.